Good evening. This is Antoinette and Karran. How are you all doing today? I know it's been a minute since we have been on air, but that's all due because we had so many things that we was working on. But we are so happy to be back to talk about some of the things that we have been working on since we was off air live. So I'm excited to be here, and I would like to bring on my co-host Karran. Hi, Karran. How are you?
Hi, Antoinette. It is great to be back on again. How are you?
I am busy, but I'm glad to be back again. Glad to be just to do some catching up. You
Yes, yes,
off
yes,
air, we haven't really talked a lot because we've been so busy.
yes. I know you have a lot going on, and I have a project going on with the River Road African American Museum in Donaldsonville, and
Uh-huh.
still doing my regular Thursday calls with the descendants of Jesuit enslavement, and still trying to work on my own genealogy.
That's three projects. I've counted three. Okay, so
Yeah.
you know what I have to do? I have to disappear for a moment. But before I do that, I'm just gonna pull up all of the announcements to what we'll be talking about tonight before I go in and share on YouTube and Facebook so people can follow us. Give me 1 minute. And in the meantime, there is so much that we want to share. We just want to thank everybody for just joining us tonight and being patient with us as we come back and share some new information. And when I do that, I'm going to turn on over to Karran and disappear for a minute. All right, Karran, it's right there all for you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And it's so good to see you guys. I'm also monitoring the chat. And if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat and we'll try to cover those on air. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the research we've been conducting and some of the projects we've been working on these last 3 months. We'll also focus on Antoinette's visit to the Louisiana State Archives, the Richardson Funeral Home Incorporated, the Amite African American Funeral Programs, and the collection at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library Special Collections. And I'm going to be talking about DNA tonight. So I, look forward to engaging with you guys, especially in the chat room. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to our channel so that you won't miss any of our content. We're happy to be back. We've taken a little break. We have been working on some special projects that we'll talk a little bit more about tonight, and enjoy the show.
All right. Thank you, Karran. Thank you. But anyway, it's so good to be back. I'm going to go ahead and let you go first with the talk, talking about some of the things that you want to talk about. And let me just grant you that permission to share. Okay. There you go. You can share.
Okay. Yes. Tonight, I want to talk a little bit about DNA. Um, all of the DNA companies, the major companies, Ancestry.com, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, they usually have a sale for the holiday season. And as with everything, they're trying to sell us, they've opened up the holiday season to be much earlier than Black Friday. And I also want to say that if you have Amazon Prime, you can get these test kits even cheaper because you won't have to pay the shipping costs. But because we are going into the holiday season, I think it is
My
so
job is to
important.
make
I think it is so important to test as many family members while you're at these family gatherings before everybody gets started eating. Ask as many family members as possible to get tested. And while these kits are on sale, now is a good time to buy several. I have 323andMe test kits coming in the mail any day now. And I want to tell you a little bit more. Let me just share my screen with my this is going to be my third 23andMe test. And some of you might say, well, why in the world did you take the 23andMe test 3 times? Well, the technology changes. I think the first test I did was in 2016. And at the time, they were using, I think, the V4 chip. And these chips, I guess they only go back so far in your ethnicity. So this is my ethnicity report, 75% on this one, 75% sub-Saharan African. And as I scroll down, I want to go all the way down here. I have a little bit of Jamaican DNA. And so this was my oldest test. And so now I'm going to switch to this other one. You see where hopefully it shows 74.9. Is that showing at 74.9, Antoinette? Well, hopefully it shows 74.9 ethnicity. And as I scroll down, you will see that I still have this Caribbean, but let me see, I think it has one more region. Oh, the difference here is I have Somali. On my other one, after my last African, it doesn't show Somali. But on my newest test that I took this past spring, it shows Somali. And I recently found out if you order the 23andMe plus health plus membership test, which is on sale right now for I think $108.99, you will be able to get even more ethnicity that goes even further back, 0.3% Somali. That's just an indication that my ancestry goes way, way, way back in Africa. And I know from my haplogroup report, and a haplogroup tells you basically where the origins of your family begins. I know I have South Eastern African ancestry and Northeastern African ancestry. And so I just expanded this African map, and this Somali brings you right back into the eastern part of Africa, which is on my maternal side. And I already know that I'm going to be able to get even more information going even further back with this new chip with the health report added to it. And it's also going to show me some of my DNA matches that go even further back. And I know with all these companies, they sell you on the ethnicity composition. But what's really great is when you get to this area, your friends, and I'm not going to pull up my DNA matches just to protect people's privacy, but your DNA matches are people you are actually related to. And all of the companies have that ability. This one is my family tree DNA. And as you can see, each one of the companies, they have slightly different information. This one has me at 76% African. The others had me right around 75%. And the basis of them are the same. This family tree DNA, as you can see, is also showing the Somali, some Ethiopian, at basically East African ancestry. I know as we do our genealogy, we often talk about most of us having West African ancestry, and I absolutely have lots of West African ancestry. but because I know my maternal line started off in East Africa, which is where humankind basically started off as well, I know that chances are this Somali ancestry is on my maternal side. I uploaded my information to my heritage, and it had me, let's see if it tells me my total percentage. I probably have to add my percentage, my African percentages up, but I see it has a little bit of that Kenyan DNA coming from East Africa as well. Here is a picture of it. It still shows a lot of the West Africa DNA and some of the East African DNA. So although all of the companies have you at slightly different percentages, they all are basically the same. The ethnicity reports are what they say the least accurate part, because that information changes based on who is in their database, because they're comparing your DNA to other people in the database. What you really want from your DNA results are those DNA matches, because if you are having a brick wall, the DNA matches can help you get further back and find those relatives. We always hear about people say, oh, I can't find my people in the records. And so when you are having difficulty finding your people in the records, sometimes it may be because you're searching for people who you believe to be related to you, but who may not be biologically related to you. And your DNA matches will show you who you are biologically related to. Now, I always tell people, these DNA matches that you find in that situation, those are just bonus relatives. Your relatives are the people you grew up with, the people you believe you're related to. But sometimes people's fathers are not the fathers who actually produced them. And sometimes a mother may actually be your auntie or cousin. This happens. But you don't throw those people out, just because you find biologically you're related to some other people. But for African American people, because it is so hard to figure this stuff out sometimes, having DNA as a tool is definitely something that is worthwhile doing. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to share on DNA, but I do want to acknowledge the people who are in our chat room, and just say welcome to everybody who's there. As we go on, more people will be joining us. And if you have any questions about DNA, even once we've moved on, we could always revisit that subject and revisit those questions later on.
And we probably would have, I know I have some questions for you, but thank you for that update, because, a lot of people are still afraid to take the DNA. There's always those things that, the government is in your business and all that. But sometimes the only way to find those family members is through DNA. Thank you, Karran.
Yes. And I have found many, and I just want to, remind everybody, check all of the major companies, website for the sale, go on Amazon for the sale.
Read that fine print.
Yes, always read fine print, and know that when you do take a DNA test, sometimes you can find that who you thought was your father or your grandfather might not actually be, but it's nothing to panic about. Just decide that if you want to find out whatever the truth is, just know if you don't want to find out what the truth is, then don't take the test. But I just don't want anybody to be blindsided. Family is family as far as I'm concerned. And when you're doing genealogy, for me, the quest is to find as many relatives as possible to help build up my knowledge of what my family history is. So
thank you for that. I just want to give you and talk about what I've been doing for the last 4 months since we stopped doing our live Zoom sessions. But as you know, Karran, I have about 30 years of research that I have done and collect throughout the years. And what's important to me is to look at where am I now? Am I just researching and collecting? What do I want to do with the research? Now, out of all my research, it's not just about my family, it's extended through the community. So basically, the records that I have, and the research material that I have, there are two collections. There is one at the Center for Louisiana Southeast Studies in Hammond, Louisiana, and that research that focus on the Florida parishes, I have used the Center for Louisiana Studies as the repository. Now, my peonage research in voluntary servitude and slavery research, I have chose to house that material at the Amistad. So I sort of want to just give a view of what I've been working on. And when I tell you it is tedious, it is tedious. And in the meantime, Richardson's Funeral Home, who I've been working with now with the funeral programs, we have over 1,000 funeral programs. Can you see these books here, Karran?
Absolutely.
Okay, those books are funeral records, and it's a volume of 6 books that they have donated to me. Now, inside of those books would be the information that you would basically find the deceased person's name, the information that's given to them to the funeral home by the informant. And so the books basically go back from 1996 to 2006 is the last year. But that's a very extensive collection. Matter of fact, I found 2 of my uncles. I found quite a few relatives in these books. So something else has transpired from that. I created a database, and the database looks like this is what I did. I created a database, and that database has the deceased person's name, first name, last name, the year they was born, the year they died, and where they are buried at. So I keep a database of all the people, all the funeral programs that I have collected through Richardson's Funeral Home. So the last index was 590. Well, the good news is East Baton Rouge Parish contacted me, and they are scanning the 590 will be online for people to research. So I'm very happy with that.
I just want to show you, Antoinette, this is my collection of funeral programs right here. And so
Yes.
My question for you is, should I try to get these moved out now? Or, I mean, I just got another one just last week, and my mother-in-law, I guess it's getting to the point now where people know that I'm collecting them. So my mother-in-law made sure she got one for me from a relative whose mother recently passed away.
How many do you have so far?
I've never stopped to count them. So you bringing this up, I should, I don't know, I might have 50 to 100.
Okay, so are most of the funerals surrounded by New Orleans?
Probably the majority of them are, but some are not.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The first thing that you need to do is make a decision as to where you want to preserve them at. Where do I want them to go? I would look at that based upon the majority of them, where they come from. If the majority of those funeral programs in New Orleans, then I would look for somewhere in New Orleans to hold them. I try to do it once a year because I have so many coming in. When I pick up the ones that I gave to East Baton Rouge Parish Special Collections on the 22nd, well, I'm going to give them an additional 100 that's coming from somebody else. And so people will be able to go online and make a copy. Now, the good thing is, once they give them back to me, then I will be bringing them over to Southeastern, the Center for Louisiana Studies, Southeast Studies.
So you're going to have them in more than one location.
Exactly. And so, like you, when people find out that's what I'm doing, then they start to call, I have a collection, and they are very helpful in information. It really helps out a lot. So please don't throw them away. The second thing I want to bring out, let me just highlight that. I had an opportunity to visit the Louisiana State Archives. And in doing so, out of all of my 30 years of research, I have never been on the second floor.
I haven't been there either. Honest, I've always done everything on the first floor.
When I went to the second floor and the third floor, the amount of records, when you think about a warehouse, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Some of those records in those boxes probably haven't been opened since they've been put there.
Wow.
So I had an opportunity to really, I didn't look in any specific documents or box, but I just want you to know that the second floor and the third floor, Leonard and I took that tour. But I want to show you something because the records are coming in every day. And I think people need to make that decision as to what do they want to see happen to their family records. So genealogy for me is not just about researching my family history. It is trying to collect information that can be helpful for other people that's researching. I wanted to be that change because I'm gonna tell you why. When I first started researching, there was so little research material for us.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the census, there was absolutely nothing. I knew that I had to change that. And so there's many times I've had to get off my research because these type of boxes come to me as well. So these boxes that you're looking at, they was just donated to the Louisiana State Archives. They hadn't went through this box yet. But look at how old these records are. You can still,
Wow.
as if you can see some of the dust on those. Those just came in.
Wow.
You know, and people cleaning up their home. Give you an example. Dave Tring, the former governor of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his daughter was cleaning out the garage, and she's been cleaning out the garage for some time now. And she lives in North Carolina. So she came from North Carolina. She's cleaning out the garage. She found some more stuff for him. You know what she did? She brought it over to the Louisiana State Archives.
Well, that's good. That's real good. I did that rather than just pushed it aside or put it in the attic or what have you.
And I'm still finding that we're holding on we're holding on valuable records in our homes, and we won't release them. I don't know what it is. So we have to talk to families who have those type of records, whether it be records of the community, records of the schools, the churches, the Black schools, because when integration took place, a lot of those records was destroyed. The photographs was destroyed. The school programs was destroyed. So it's been a task to try to convince people, especially the older people, get it out of your home. Because little do they know, they'll call themselves holding on to it for their daughter or their son. But you have to ask yourself, what are they going to do with it? What are they going? And that's the question that I ask myself all the time. What would my two sons or my husband or my they wouldn't know what to do.
It's going to end up in a dumpster somewhere. I know that's what's going to happen if I don't move the stuff out of my house.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, when you're talking about moving something out of your house, you don't have time for anything else now, unless you're one of those people that's just go and drop off the collection and don't go do not look into it. Well, guess what? Your job is easy for you. But for me, I always go into every piece of document. I look at it. Some things I have to scan and keep home because I'm working on something for myself and I don't want to have to go travel to go and get that document. But I do want to show you the boxes of funeral programs that we took over to the Center for South.
Wow.
That's boxes.
Look, and I just held up my one little folder full. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Wow.
And so before I turn it over, I will put them in alphabetical order, make the database, and when I bring it to them, then it's already organized. Now, let me just show you the advantage of me doing that, because when I do that, it helps to get it up online quick.
I was just going to ask you, what do you put in the database? Like if I wanted to create a database like what you've done, what are the kinds of things I need to make sure I cover?
Well, the person's first name, last name, the year that they was born, the day they died, and where they're buried at. Okay. That was very important information. Now, you may have something totally different that you want to put in there, but that's what I wanted to put in there because that was important to me. All right, I'm going to pull up how, and because this is what they always tell me, Antoinette, you always give us things so organized that it helped to get it up online real fast. Now, what you're looking at here, you're looking at box 1. And if a person was looking for someone with the last name Alexander, you see 1947 to 2005. Now, of course, you can't see the original. You actually have to go to the Center, Southeast Center for Louisiana Studies. But you can call them and they can also mail you a copy, pay for your copy if you live in a distance. But
at least you know that it's there.
Yeah. You see, so, and when I do this, they just copy and paste and put it online. But let me see.
Wait. Look, I was like, get back to those bees. This can definitely help with your genealogy because I'm looking at the Butlers. I saw some Broomfields on there. Yes. I know my DNA that I am related to a Broomfield Caston family. And there come some of coming out of I think St. Helena, then they go into Pike County, Mississippi.
And Washington County, Washington
Parish, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so even though I don't know how I relate to that group of people, accessing some of these funeral programs might help me because I'm looking at these dates, it's gonna have more current information than I might be finding on places like Ancestry.com. Because most funeral programs I've seen have the obituary listed in there. So for people who have died like 2012, 2013, as I get this list, I can find out who their children are. Those may be some of the names that show up in my DNA results.
And you look at this, Flossie Butler, 1917 to 1993. 1914. And so I was able to, and that's why that date was important to me. And if you look at the B's, it'll tell you there was 104 in there. Now let's go down to the C.
Okay.
66 C's. So
can you repeat the name of the website? This is at southeastern.edu. Okay, I see.
That's right.
Look, I want to go to this.
Yeah, and all the person would have to do is type in Richardson's Funeral Home collection. Okay. And I did not want this to be under my collection at all because it was too much. I wanted it to stand on its own. So I just really wanted to show you how extensive it is. Look at the Harrells there.
Now, let me ask you, does Richardson plan to continue donating even into the future?
Yes, we talked about that. So what they have done at this point, they have created a box, and every time somebody go to a funeral, they will put it in a box. Now, Eddie, there was the person who really was doing this, Eddie Brazil. He just passed away about 3 weeks ago. And his wife still have like tons of funeral programs in her closet, and they're talking to her to try to get her to donate them to me so I can get them donated. But I just want to just show you, is there.
Wow.
And so it took me about 6 months with that one because it's not like I can really stay on it. But those books, Back to the Broomfields, I found so many Broomfields in that volume of books that I was sharing with you.
Wow.
I'm gonna show you.
Those
There
are my
are
cousins.
many Broomfields.
Those are my cousins.
You and Bernice Bennett are related to the same people.
Yeah, I believe I'm probably related to Bernice because we have several cousins in common.
Well, anyway, this volume of books have tons of Broomfields.
Wow.
And what I was doing, I was taking a picture with my phone and sending her some of them before I donate the books. Because the books will be donated after the holiday, the Thanksgiving holiday, because I pick up the other records soon. And so I want to go ahead and do that. Something else I want to tell you, I am so proud that...
Hey, before you go on, question from the chat about funeral programs. The question is, can you do this for all funeral homes? I am from Georgia. This is from Veronica Warren from Georgia.
I would go to the funeral home and talk with them. Because maybe she can go online and use this database on as an example of what could happen. But I would go to the funeral home and talk with them. And that's my plans too, to go to other funeral homes in the area. But the good thing is there was a newspaper article that was published on this collection. And this collection, I was able to find some real civil rights movements of people who was in the civil rights movements, different things that really spoke to that. But I do want to show you something, and then I'm gonna pull up something else because that's important for me to show you how that newspaper helped to push those funeral programs. The book, The Images of America, African Americans in Tangipahoa and St. Helena, now sits in the Louisiana State Archives.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That was a major, it's not that many books that is on African Americans in the first place. And so I'm hoping to see Eva Bayham's book that covers Coverton on the shelf. So that was something else. But let me just share this article that came up in the newspaper about Richardson's Funeral Home. So if I was her, I would go and talk to the funeral home. Any other questions coming out of there?
That was the only question so far. Well, there was just a statement while you're pulling that up. Someone says, I'm trying to find my family info out of Greenwood, Mississippi, Mitchell, and now I heard the name was changed from Martin. That's coming from Nessa. So, any advice we have that she can take, some steps she can take to look at researching Mitchell or Martins.
Out of where?
Greenwood, Mississippi.
Okay. All right. Let me just share this with you. Okay, there was an article, Preserving History, and it came up in a newspaper, and I was hoping that other funeral homes, would have read it so that they could look at preserving their collection. And so you can see the staff is giving me the collection. I'm looking at it, and it was I was so happy that our cousin Joanne, she was the one that said, hey, look, let's not throw these away. Let's talk with Antoinette. Let's see what she has to say. But it was just something that there was so much that I learned about the community through those funeral programs.
And this is creating records that future generations will always have access to. You mentioned earlier how hard it was to find information when you got started with this, 30 years ago, because there was so little information. Certainly there weren't any funeral programs, but now there will be funeral programs for future generations to find and see how families are connected because of those obituaries in those funeral programs.
Okay, and I really want to make note of this, that the Digital Library of Georgia, they have a freely accessible collection of more than 3,300 programs.
Wow.
And
so for Veronica, that might be a good starting point for her to suggest that funeral homes in her area.
Yes.
There.
The Digital Library of Georgia, since she's in Georgia, right?
Yes, she is.
Okay, so that would be a great start. But I just wanted to say that was one of the ways that I learned about Rosenwald School.
Oh, wow.
Although I haven't seen anything written. I haven't seen anything written on the Rosenwald School, but the funeral program really said that she taught at the Rosenwald School here.
Okay. So Veronica is saying she lives in Louisiana now. So, but she says, so maybe she can call them. And she has some obituaries that she's been, and have been doing some family research. Well, thank you so much for your question and comment, Veronica.
Thank you, Veronica. Yes. But those funeral programs are a wealth of information. And so this would be the second collection that I have collected. And this collection is being digitized at the East Baton Rouge Special Collections Library. And so I am very happy with that partnership. And not only have they asked me for the funeral programs, but if there's anything else that I want to share. And the reason that I like that it is in two places, because, I mean, Hammond just got hit with Hurricane Ida, and Southeastern got hit really bad. So we often think about what would happen to the collections in our homes. We can't only think about our homes, we have to think about other places as well, So having it in two places, especially if you can digitize it, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, you answered a question I'm getting ready to ask you about. Why have it in two places? But that makes a lot of sense. And we just always have to be mindful that we are creating the history for tomorrow. We're creating that as we live today.
I want to show you something. Now, this is my bag that when a hurricane comes, this is one of those bags, how you purchase a new set of sheets and it comes I put all of my drives in this little bag, or this little plastic container, and keep it near me. So if anything should happen, I won't be able to save everything, but at least what I have digitized is here.
So Antoinette, we all, I don't know if you evacuated for Ida. I evacuated for Ida, and I brought my hard drives with me. But I don't have them in a plastic bag. I just threw them in my suitcase. So you make a really, really good point. And I also I try to back up my computer on 2 different hard drives right around the 1st of every month. Some people back up their computer hard drive more often than that. But you just made me realize I should have put them in a plastic bag.
Especially every season, we're facing that. And I never think about anything else as much as I think about my files. Furniture can be replaced.
Right.
Let's face it. But those special oral history collections, that one picture that you may want to hold on to, that can be destroyed forever.
And after Hurricane Katrina, I had a desktop computer at that time, and I didn't unplug it, and my hard drive got fried. And that was before I was in the habit of backing up every month. And that's the only thing I cried over after Katrina. Yeah. My house was very much destroyed, but when I brought it to CompUSA to try to get them to get the information off the hard drive. And when they called me and told me they couldn't get the information off the hard drive, some pictures saved, but there were a lot of pictures that I lost, and I lost a lot of the physical pictures in the house from water. I saved some, but I lost a lot. But it was the pictures and the information on that hard drive that made me cry. Nothing else.
And I can understand that. I can understand that, Karran, because look, I made my 61. And so what I did on my 61st birthday, what I said, I asked these questions. I wrote these questions down for myself, and then I answered those questions. What do I want the next year to look like for me in research? And what I want the next year to look like is to be able to get this material out of my home. And it would take me a year to do it. And that's just one. If it's the Amistad, that'll take me a whole year to do that. So I have 3 boxes sitting in the office right now, and I will get it out of there. And then I'm going to celebrate, because that's a major accomplishment. That means that I have given other materials for other people. So I don't want to just be a collector. I mean, you're collecting all this, and what are you going to do with it? And see, and I would never, if I had to do it all over again, I would never let 30 years of material pile up like that. That's a lot of material.
Well, you are doing a lot of service for a lot of people whom you may never know. And you're inspiring other people to do the same.
Well, if we hold on to it, how could students, young people in the universities write their dissertations or their thesis, or we're holding on to material too tight? And I can tell you from my own experience, when you go into these special collections in these universities, you may get 2% of African American people. 2%.
Think about how all these plantation owners, their family papers are in these special collections. Well, we have families, we have papers, we have photos, we have the stories of our lives as well that we need to be putting into these special collections.
And oftentimes, I can say I'm very pleased with the fact that I have encouraged 3 other collections: Richardson's Funeral Home, Bernice Bennett, Dr. Kinsley Garrison. So that's 4 African American collections at the Center for Louisiana Southeast Studies. So I am pleased with that. Just like Bernice is working on this project with the homesteaders. You're doing something, you're giving back. You're giving back, like Leonard, A Place Called Desire, his documentary.
Yes.
And to see that on WYES, and you say, hey, look, I know this person.
Yes.
That inspired me to continue to make sure that whatever I have, I don't hold on to it, because it's not mine to hold on to.
You bring up a great point. When you mentioned Leonard in A Place Called Desire, and he's sharing history about that community. The information that you have with these funeral programs and other records about St. Helena and Tangipahoa, you're sharing information about those communities. And so as people are researching their family history, and if they know their families come from those any certain community, that just gives them a place to go and get a wealth of information that might be real difficult to come across in otherwise.
Exactly. And something else that I do before I give away the collection, I blog my Preserving Our History in Tangipahoa and St. Helena. For each blog, I post a photograph. Every blog has an image or something to it. And I am pleased to announce, now, this was a funeral program of a lady named Corrine Burton, and someone had shared it with me. And the good thing about it, people, If they don't want to give it to you, now you can take your phone or whatever, you can take a picture of it. But I am very honored to say that this blog at this point, 386,742 people have read the blogs.
Wonderful.
And a lot of the people are from this area.
Wow.
So, there's all types of records that I put, some from Ancestry, but a lot of the pictures that of people. There's a Broomfield, right? Uh-huh. And so this is another way that I share information that can help people. And I try to blog at least twice or three times a month. There's this beautiful photograph that this was in Hancock Whitney Bank. I went in the bank to take care of some business. I'm looking at this photograph on the wall, and what it was, B. Stearns, and all this is African-American men lined up at B. Stearns, ready to go out to delivery. And so these rare photographs is something that I also come across too. So anything that I get my hands on, I try to share it. So not only will you find the original somewhere, but you will find a blog about that particular picture.
That's just great information. And I know there will be so many people in the future thanking you for having put that there.
Well, I get a lot, and I'm being honest with you. I have a lot of people that use the blog. I've had other universities to find information from these blogs. I've had different agencies that was working on cold cases to use the blog, and they often say, you will never know what you have done. And I don't stop to think about what I have done. I just do it because it needs to be done. Somebody has to do it.
And you're absolutely right. And so, there's so many people out there who are working on their family history. Some people think that, okay, I have to once I get finished, then I'll do this. But you never finish. You never finish the research. So share what you have.
Yeah, share it. Like you have those funeral programs. And I don't mind emailing you a sample of what it should look like or what it could look like. And so when I'm finished with this database, then I can donate this database to the genealogy department at the Amite Genealogy Library.
And once I get started with the database, get the ones I have in this folder listed, as they're coming in, I can just keep adding more to that database. So they won't pile up on me.
Well, I created a database for each set because there was so many.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why, because if you look at the first set that is online for Richardson's Funeral Home, well, the other collection will be added to that, but it'll be box number 11, 12, or whatever it is, But I was really pleased with when I went to look at the collection. I was so happy and so pleased at how organized it was in the boxes, the archival boxes, and just the way they protect the collection. I was really pleased with that.
Before you donated them, did you scan them all for your own purposes?
No, I did not. I only scanned the ones that I know that would have meant something to me.
Okay.
My research, my family history, or either if it had a significance to do with the civil rights movement or historical content, yes, I scanned those.
Okay.
And I blog about them. Mm-hmm. So once I scan it, I blog about it anyway.
Because I could imagine that some people might have a fear of their stuff getting lost at an archive or library, or sitting in the box for months and months or years and years. So
no, I can say this at the Center for Southeast Louisiana Studies do not do anything like that.
Okay.
Once it goes online, that means it's ready for public view.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
And that's why I give it to them organized. So whether that's an index to my collection, I know what's in there. I will say folder number 1, and I'll write the name. And so when I give it to them here, I know what's in the collection. because I have so much that I can't remember all of that. I can't. There's no way.
Yes, yes.
So I had to refer back to my own index or my finding aid. And recently I was a part of the 16 women that was chosen in New Orleans at the Amistad to have their collection organized and a finding aid. Well, I just received an email the other day. They almost finished with the finding aid to my collection at the Amistad. So everything that you saw there at the Amistad, there's going to be a finding aid for it now
What was
online
it like? Like, I don't know what, 15 boxes of stuff or something?
and more and more.
Well,
You know,
yeah, so that finding is going to be really helpful because when we were going through those boxes, there was some really good stuff in those boxes.
yeah, yeah. So I think my first donation was 2000 to the Amistad. I think it was around 2000.
Wow, that's when I first met you.
Yeah. So look at this now. We're getting ready to go into 2022. So that's 22 years ago. I can't remember everything that's in there. All the advice that I can give someone, how could we write history or rewrite history if we hold on things too tight?
Yes, I remember when we went to look at that collection, there were some things in there that you forgot were that you had already in there. And and I remember we were looking at uh, a church secretary's logbook.
From Petty AME Church.
Yes, and so I think sometimes people don't think about what kinds of things they can have preserved. But from that, we saw relatives' names, like we didn't know that so many of our Harrell relatives were at that church.
That's right. That's right. You know,
And that's
and
just seeing who paid their dues and stuff.
exactly. I had, you know how they have those little church plates, and on the back of that little plate, they had the deacon's name, and a lot of the church members' names is on the back of this plate. So I have this plate that I'm going to donate it to the Amistad because the church is no longer open for my understandings.
Hmm.
And that church was a historic church in New Orleans. You
But I
know,
think people don't think about things such as that. If a family member of yours was the church secretary and she dies and she has a lot of those kinds of records, that could be something that could be valuable. It has valuable information for people when it comes to research.
and I really think too, Karen, that they should have some bylaws or policies that when the secretary is no longer the secretary, that all her books need to remain at the church
At the church,
or church
yes.
records, so that if the church want to set up their own archive room for somebody that's coming and may want to look at records, that it would be available. Because I have found that when a new pastor come in, a new secretary come in, and sometimes a sheriff in some cases, well, they take the records with them, and I don't think those records should go with those individuals because they was doing a service for the church, and so those records basically belong to the church.
Right. I mean, if you hadn't found those in a relative's house,
They would be
they would have been lost. That history would have been lost.
right, and how much they was paying at 50 cent,
Hmm.
their dollar, whatever they was paying. It was just good to see that, and especially in our cousin Juanita's handwriting.
Yes.
And that's all because when I took her into my home, and because of my genealogy background, I knew not to throw anything away. It took me a year to go through all of her boxes.
And look what you found.
I'm very grateful.
You have some records for a church that's no longer open.
Exactly. Right. And so I have turned those records over to the Amistad. And I do have some other things that will go in my private collection instead of going in the Amistad. I mean, going into the Penage collection, because my new collection is the Penage collection. So everything I have collected in my Penage research will fall under that particular collection.
And so people will be able to search those things separate from the family history and other uh, uh, Tangible Hoe and St. Helena Parish Records that you have there.
That's why I can't take on anything else. So when we wasn't doing the show, it wasn't that I wasn't doing anything and you wasn't doing anything. It's time for me now to really turn off my phone and just get in this office and just get it organized so that the first of the year they can have this peonage collection to show that when Juneteenth come next year, there can be a big movement to show that some people didn't get their freedom to 1945, 1921, 1931. And so this record is evidence to prove what I am saying took place for some people.
Yeah, and speaking of the show, we will be coming. We're back, but we'll be once a month instead of every week, and that will allow both of us to work on our other projects that we're working on without getting overwhelmed.
Yes, yes, because you can get overwhelmed if you're not. I mean, just doing your own family research can be overwhelming. But when you're
Always.
taking on a community, and so my research is taking the Southeast Florida parishes. That's Tangible Hoe, St. Helena, East Baton Rouge, and now Washington. So that's 4 parishes that I'm collecting from. And because I live on the state line with Mississippi and our family members was in Mississippi, I'm even taking care of some of that along the lines of Amite County, Pike County, because the Center for Louisiana Southeast Studies collect information from Mississippi as well.
That's wonderful. And while I thought I had only paternal relatives from that part of Louisiana and Mississippi, I now know I have maternal relatives. So I can't wait for your research to help me with my research.
Yeah, and like I said, I know those Broomfields will help you.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to it because I have been sort of putting together. In fact, I've already built a separate Broomfield tree just so that I can see how they're all connected, especially to the Caston family in Mississippi, and I'm sure some of those church programs are going to fill in some of the blanks of the more recent people too.
And I'm gonna tell you, speaking about the church programs, on the 20th, well, she's gonna bring it to me like the 15th. Her name is Patsy Johnson, but her father was a Broomfield.
Okay.
So her collection is her funeral program, and because her mother was a pastor, she has a lot of church programs of the Mississippi area, as well as, once again, Washington Parish, St. Tammany Parish, St. Helena, and Tangible Hoe.
A whole community.
A community.
A whole community where people have related, and they're just generations, because those families go back, way back.
That's right.
Generations.
I think the oldest person in the collection that I found was 1887. Was born in 1887.
I might have found some that go further back than that, just from that general vicinity. I don't remember which parish or which county in Mississippi.
But that's how old the person was. So that person was born in 1887.
Okay.
So that was really remarkable.
Yes, so, many generations.
And so we can look at how funeral programs have evolved over the years, you know, from typewriters, from handwritten, to a lot of photographs. And I helped a cousin of mine do his father's funeral program. And I said, you know, people put a lot of pictures in it, but 10 years from now, no one will know who those people are. So I wanted to make sure that not to put a whole collage of pictures, but enough room where I can add the text to say, to the left, this is this person. Because, you know, think about the genealogist 10 years from now. I don't know who this is.
You make a good point. I'm guilty. I am guilty. I've made many funeral programs, and I have not labeled those photos.
Well, that's what I'm doing. And as I write my own funeral program, I'm working on my own. And when I finish with it, I'll put it in a, external hard drive and let them know what program I use to create it. And I'll put it with my other business affairs. But I know what I want to be said about me. I don't want anybody sitting around, well, what you think we ought to put? I don't know. So I just took it up on my own when I made my own funeral arrangements. I did all that. And I want to make sure that what goes in my funeral program is what I want to go in my funeral program. I want to choose the pictures. I want to do all of that, because I know what I want said.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so and people do not like to talk about that, but as sure as we live, we're going to die. And so I think that's a fact. And so why wait till something happened and then you all destroyed over the loss of a loved one? You can't think right, you're emotional thinking about it, and you put something wrong and say, I'm sorry, I forgot somebody's name, and that happens. And if you forget somebody's name in a funeral program, they hold that against you.
Yes.
My brother's name was not in that funeral program.
It could cause a lot of strife and face because they're gonna think it was done intentionally,
deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take the time to write it, and if you don't want to go so far as creating everything, at least write what you want to be said and put it in your business affairs. Because like I'm reading some funeral programs with some people who I know did some wonderful things and left a beautiful legacy, but all you read is they were saved and baptized at the age of 11, and they don't know too much more.
Right. Nothing more about the life they lived.
The life they lived.
Right. That's where, you think about your bio that you have for when you're speaking somewhere. That's some of the stuff that you want to have in your funeral, or in your funeral program.
Especially if it's a celebration of life.
Yes.
If you're calling it a celebration of life, we'll talk about what that person did up on that time on this earth.
That's right. Makes total sense.
Yeah. So maybe one of our shows will be where we need to talk about putting those things in order. Really, we need to do that. We really need to look at making sure we talk about, okay, it's good that we can put the pictures, but think about 5 years from now, think about 20 years from now, when another genealogist are coming and look at those funeral programs that's in Southeastern or in the library, but they have no idea who the people are.
Well, in the chat room, Michelle Grant and Dante Eubanks, Michelle says, thanks, a great idea to label photos in obits. And Dante says, that's a good point. On pictures, we have to think of future family historians and genealogists. Thank you, Dante and Michelle, for your comments.
Yes, well, that's it. So, and we will do, I think what we'll do is show one example of one with it and without it, and we can always leave enough room to label.
Hold up, wait a minute. Gwen says, hi, I came late. I'm enjoying the conversation, and my maiden name is Harrell also.
Oh, my son. You see there?
Hi, Gwen. Where are your people from?
That's always the question we ask, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. But so we're back, everybody, and thank you for joining in. But like I said, when you didn't see us, it wasn't that we wasn't busy. I'm just trying to get all of this information out there for other researchers, and people can have access to more genealogy research. From photographs to documents, for funeral programs, church programs. I mean, I'm finding, I don't know, sometimes I feel like a child in Toys R Us because all the information that is coming to me.
Well, you're doing good. Doing good work.
Karen. All right, you want to close us out for tonight?
Sure. Well, thank you everybody for joining us in the chat room. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel so you will be able to see us on future shows, and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our videos. And we'll see you next month on the second Tuesday of the month. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Good night, Karen.